for that application. And just to let you know, the sheriff's deputy is still there. We estimate the cost at about $1,000 a day for that. So putting all those costs together in the plan, we wanted to present to you an opportunity to share the fact that we believe the road can be open to one lane, protect traffic until the Park Service can move forward. They're still in the procurement phases, and we're not sure after the meeting on Thursday how long that will be. There's no indication of what time, hopefully a short duration. But that being said, we wanted to present a plan after hearing some of the feedback on that Thursday meeting to allow to move forward. So with that, Andrew, if you have anything else on that.
I think that pretty much covers everything for Sandy Hook. You know, we realize it's a critical issue and people want that road open, so we feel like this is the best solution we could come up with, you know, that allows it to be reopened for one lane and then a temporary application that can restore traffic when the work's completed.
So civil engineers, the federal civil engineers, have our county engineers met with them yet?
Actually, it's 1 o'clock today is when we got confirmation. So that's when we'll hear their plan for their long-term repair as well as their procurement, we would anticipate. So we have shared this proposal with the National Park Service, and we'll coordinate the removal of the wall either by our county forces or their contractor when that work's completed.
So for us to be able to move forward with one lane, the baskets in place, the federal government, they can't keep us from doing that?
No, I don't believe so. I mean, they haven't raised any objections either way, but it's completely within our roadway. We're not on their property.
Okay, so what do you need from us today?
Being under $50,000, we put out the contract, so we don't need the official approval moving forward. However, we wanted to share with you our plan, the amount of dollars involved with our plan. It would be a stop yield condition in the one-way. We just wanted to see moving forward to, if consensus basically to move forward with this plan, realizing that there's funding available in our Hoffmaster Harpers Ferry project to move forward with that, and the fact that reimbursements involved with this 75%. And the other dollars we're expending with the sheriff's deputy, the gates, and other things.
Are the bids in yet, Scott?
Yes, the bids were due today at 10 o'clock. So the 5 bids were received. The low bid was $36,980.
My question would be your statement, all considerations for the public safety has been considered with this proposal.
Yes, this wall, 9 feet tall, 9 feet wide, massive wall for the protection of the landslide coming. Any movement would be, again, being the condition that it's in, saturated conditions, there's still potential for the landslide to move. That's where we worked with McAferry, Gaby and Walt, and looked at what the pressures, the loads are in behind there, and what size wall, and that's why it's so massive a wall. Some of the discussions were, what about a smaller concrete barrier wall? They usually make those 3 or 4 feet tall. That wouldn't be able to withstand something along the lines of a 9 foot wide by 9 foot tall stone gabion wall.
So safety is of utmost. Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, I would just add to that. Obviously, there's a risk, you know, anytime we're driving along the county roads. So we're trying to mitigate the risk as we see it, and we feel like this is the best solution. But obviously, there's going to be inherent risk in whatever we undertake. But we feel like collaboratively, this is the best solution we could come up with.
I like it.
And I'm sorry.
Time frame, when will it be?
They
Immediately.
told us they can start immediately this week and finish up. It's a 7-day contract. Would finish up by the end of next week.
Great.
And to add to that, the slopes along that road throughout, there's no guarantees from Mother Nature ever. So this is, as Andrew put it, a calculated risk, which seems to be quite valid and consistent with the rest of that roadway. And the other factor to consider is that opening to one lane is probably much safer than putting gates up and suspecting that no one will go through the gates. It also will keep traveling the pedestrians away from there. And finally, emergency services and rescue. It will significantly enhance the rescue time and service to the public that's there by being able to travel Sandy Hook.
And I would imagine if you continued with gates, you're going to spend more than $36,000. They probably come down faster than they go up.
There is one other related matter, and that is we've been contacted through, Dave Hayes is not here, but, no, Dave
Right there.
is here. Been contacted through NEMA, and we do have the potential to reduce our, if we do, again, nothing can be presumed at this point, but if we do meet the criteria for the state and federal reimbursement, which is currently 75-25, there is a potential. We are lobbying with the state to campaign for a 90-10 split rather than 75-25. So that's 15% more savings, and Andrew, Scott, Dave, me are working with that, and Charlie's working on that as well to try to obtain that additional 15% reimbursement.
Okay. Any other questions, comments? Thank you so much.
Thanks.
Any other staff reports from chambers? Mr. Hayes? Good morning.
Good morning. David Hayes, Director of Emergency Services. Just wanted to give you a real quick update. We've been working for about the last 18 months on the fire and rescue study. We had submitted some dates earlier at an earlier meeting this spring of a delivery in mid-May for that study. I'm happy to report, at least in an update, that study is here in its final draft. We have distributed to the appropriate representatives from the city, the Volunteer Fire and Rescue Association, certainly our offices, and the chair of the ESAC. We have a small distribution group. We're asking to take one real quick look at the final draft, and at that point we'll be bringing it to this group for your viewing and discussion matters at that point. So it's not available for open distribution, but we felt it was appropriate to be here today to let you know that the final draft is here and we're nearing conclusion of that much anticipated report. Thank you.
Any other reports? Okay, let's, administrative reports, Mr. Hovis, Mr. Okay, boards and commissions.
Yes, I have 2 boards today. The Board of Zoning Appeals would like to appoint Tracy Felker as an alternate member to serve an unfulfilled term through June 30th, 2019.
So moved.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? 5-0.
And the Social Services Board would like to reappoint David Poole and Norma Sappington to serve second 3-year terms through June 30th, 2021, and appoint Luis Flores to serve a first full term through June 30th, 2021.
So moved.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? 5-0. Thank you. Anything else? Okay, county attorney issues?
Commissioners, last week the board came to a consensus in rezoning case RZ 17-005 to deny the application of BSM Big Pool LLC to provide or assign a rural business floating zone to property located in Big Pool. Pursuant to that consensus, the decision and proposed findings of fact and conclusions of law have been prepared. To effectuate it, they would need to be adopted by the board. So at this time, it would be appropriate to adopt the decision and findings of fact denying the requested rezoning in RZ 17-005.
Okay, any questions, comments? Okay, we need a motion to deny.
A motion to deny and to accept the decision
Okay, to accept the decision.
or adopt the decision.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
I'm going to abstain. I was not here last week.
Okay. Opposed?
No.
Okay, 3-1.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other county attorney issues?
That's all.
Okay, recap update on the 2018 Washington County Community Coalition Initiative and the Washington County Day in Annapolis event. Mr. Fry, Mr. Kirchhoff. I'm sorry, it's not your turn yet. I'm sorry. We have to be back up here to citizens' participation. We have any citizens here today care to participate? Okay, any citizens here to participate? Okay, we do have, I just see 2 candidates for county commissioner, Bill McKinley and Donnie Ravis. I'd like to welcome you to our county commissioner meeting. Would either one of you like to say anything for the good? Just keep it.
Donnie Ravis, Hagerstown, candidate for county commissioner. Yeah, I'm excited. I've learned a lot in the last 4.5 months coming in here and to all the municipal meetings, and I'm excited about pitching in, helping out.
Thank you.
So I appreciate everything the county's been doing, especially in the South County, which I've been down there quite a few times. And yeah, that's it.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Mr. McKinley. Okay. And I say, Mr. McKinley, that's all I've ever addressed him as for many, many years. I don't mean to be, but I've known him for many, many years, and sometimes that just sticks, and you just can't get over that. At least I do that anyhow. So, okay, both of you, welcome, and thank you for taking an interest in county government. Okay. Well, there you go. Okay, recap update on the 2018 Washington County Community Coalition Initiative in Annapolis. How's former County Commissioner Jim Kirchville?
Great, Terry. How's everybody? Thanks for having us today. I'm going to let Paul start out. We just wanted to kind of give you an update. We gave the city a little update as well and wanted to come by to the county as one of our main partners.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Good to be here this morning to give you an update. We gave a book out to you that was this past year, and you may have seen it when it came to Annapolis, but I want to give it to you. And in your packet should be the recap and the update that Jim will provide. We want to thank the county and the commissioners for the support again this year. Again, this is our 12th year, and what we hear in Annapolis, it's good to come to Annapolis with one voice, and we're known for that. And we made some progress this year. And I'd like to say, even though we made some progress this year, is several years in the making. And so we appreciate the partnership. We had good support from the county. Again, we had a vendor table at the reception. We had some participation at lunch and at our small and larger group meetings. So we want to say thank you, and I'll turn it over to Jim to give a quick update on some of the things we accomplished and some of the things we're still working on.
Thanks, Paul. You have in front of you a summary sheet, and I'm not going to go into a lot of detail because I know you're behind in time. So just sum a couple of things up. We, of course, continue to advocate for improvements to I-81 and I-70-65. Those were more of, just one of those constant pressures you want to keep on the state and move forward. I am starting to hear some rumblings that I-81 will not get some of that infra grant money, although that's not official yet, so we'll see how that comes out. But there is some concern there that Maryland didn't fare well when the new allocations of that federal money come out. So that's going to mean it's more important for us to still continue to advocate at the state level to fund that through the normal finances that come through the state's state highway department. So we'll try to keep moving forward on that. Those will both probably be multiple year projects that'll be down here for a while that the coalition works on. We had a great year this year with capital budget requests. You could see a list of the different ones. They all did well. We got something for everything other than the Williamsport project, which still just has a lot of moving parts. So they have to kind of finalize what those requests are. They have gotten support from the state on some other levels, but as far as the coalition in this session went, the Urban Improvement Project, of course, maintained the governor's money that was originally put in. We want to thank Governor Hogan for being so supportive of that. They also got additional $200,000 bond bill for the Maryland Theater that the Senator Serafini helped us get. The Thomas Kennedy Memorial Park requested $300,000 and got all of that in two different areas. The Boonesboro Road Museum asked for $100,000 and got half of that. We mentioned Williamsport. And then on another side issue, which we were looking for some funding, this was more of a statewide effort, an issue, some funding to help support 24/7 crisis centers in regard to mental health. That will also likely kind of roll into some of the opioid issue as well. That effort was successful across the state. There's going to be $2 million that comes into that fund. That money isn't available this coming year. It's the following year, so you'll probably see something coming from Rick Rock and our Mental Health Authority in regard to trying to propose some 24/7 crisis center in Washington County, as well as upgrading and enhancing our mobile crisis team, which we already have in place to help support the Sheriff's Department. In regard to highway user revenue, I know you all are well aware of this, as the MACO and MML have been the big pushers behind trying to increase highway user revenue. The county did see improvement in that this year's session. Municipalities went from 0.4% to 2%, so they got the lion's share of that extra money. And this is a 5-year plan that, of course, both entities can plan a little better on, knowing that they're going to get increased funding for the next 5 years. USMH basically got flat funding in some regards, but we'll continue to advocate for additional money as additional programs go in line for USMH. And then from an educational standpoint, we're going to continue to monitor the Kerwin Commission. We expect that a lot of the bills from the Kerwin Commission to come out next session. They'll probably have a lot of price tags to them. So we're going to try to see how that will affect rural counties like Washington County and put things in place, knowing that education and workforce development is going to be primary drivers for our national economy in the coming decade as technology keeps impacting that world. Other than that, that's kind of a very quick summary. If anyone has any questions or specifics about that, I do want to thank the county staff that has supported this, Rob and his team. As we try to put together the educational documents that you have in front of you, I know Rob and Jim and their staff have helped coordinate that to make sure the county is driving the language in those pages regarding to I-81 and I-70, those different parts. We also have the county that's involved in our reception, which we think went extremely well this year. We had a really good turnout. We always get some positive feedback on that. And I know the county puts up a nice display to market our economic development efforts and things in that regard. So with that, I'll just open it up to any questions.
Yes.
Right. That works.
Right.
The government itself, it's amazing. I'm trying to think where I just saw on TV where was in Pennsylvania that they're requiring the students not as a requirement as far as to pass to graduate, but a civics course.
Yes, they're pushing that a lot harder. Yes.
Some of the simple questions of branches of government and so forth, what people don't know.
When we put these books together, and I need to thank the city, helps do the desktop publishing version, Eric, over the city, and then the Board of Ed helps do the printing. But we do 2 documents. The ones you have are what we call the members packet, which has a lot of things in the front. And quite frankly, I use this all the time in my work just to have that up on my shelf and trying to, if you need to know which committee you want to get a hold of about some issue or who's some of the players in those big committees, it's all in here. But this is for the members of the coalition to help them be educated so that when they go down to Annapolis, they kind of have a little more navigation. And then the back half is the legislative issues, and we make a smaller version of this that doesn't have as much educational stuff. What's that? Yeah, we've done this. This is probably the 3rd year, but it gets a little better. I'm not sure how that worked out, quite frankly. Yes. Oh. By the way, I forgot to promote, our next day in Annapolis is going to be January 30th. The coalition had a meeting last month. Senator Serafini was there. Our lobbyist, John Favaz, and his team was there. We tried to talk about what is the most strategic, best day to pick, and they felt trying to do that on the governor's State of the State address has more benefits than negatives. It makes it a little difficult logistically because there's so many moving parts that day, but there's also a lot more people in town that we think is better for our overall advocacy efforts. So if you just want to put on your calendar January 30th, that's going to be the next day in Annapolis, and we'll have the same type of reception at the Calvert House as well. We've already booked that for that evening.
And then we'll get together in July again to look at in 2019 legislative session, some of the priorities. And so we'll be on the lookout for that and send your thoughts and comments for that as well.
And that does bring up a good point. Another issue that kind of came up at the last meeting with our lobbyist and Senator Serafini and others is talking about the importance of trying to get our bills in earlier. I think, we always kind of have the time period of like late November, December, we finalize those agenda items and we go down to Annapolis then, but we really should try to move that back a quarter. I know this is an election year, and that may cause some different challenges on whether you want this board to make some of those decisions or the next board. But in an effort to try to have a better chance of success, particularly for controversial bills, if we could submit those bills or have them pre-filed in November and early December, and then have our delegation ready for that, they kind of missed the big rush that comes in the end of January, February, where so many of the bills have to go through committees. So they could get to the committees, get looked at quicker when you don't have the big long hearing nights. They could kind of get through faster. I think we could have more success. So if there's, the way we're trying to promote to the partners, start thinking about those legislative issues now and over the summer. Try to bring those to the table so that we're kind of prepared and could even start getting some of that legislation written through the working with our delegation to have that stuff pre-filed early. So something to think about.
Okay, Andy?
I have a question. In regards to National Park Service in Williamsport, what's the progress of that funding request? Is there a deadline for any of that funding? Or I think last year the town received or was awarded $400,000.
Right.
Has that been accepted and that's to be added to the $850 for the purchase price?
I haven't talked to Donnie in the last couple of weeks, so some things might have changed. I would say from the capital request, they have until late August to start submitting that. It's when the governor will start looking at that program. One of the challenges they had this year is they just couldn't finalize exactly what they wanted from what pot. But they were working with, as you said, DHCD and some different grant programs that they had. The council down there was trying to make some decisions. As you know, they're also talking about possible location for a new library in that same area. So I think they still need to just sort out a lot of details for that
Because
job.
I was wondering if they have the contract that they had was contingent on deadlines being met in certain deposits.
I don't believe that's finally resolved yet, but I could check with Donnie and have him get back with you guys, give you a good update.
I get asked that a lot, by the way.
Okay.
Since I get my gas.
Yes. We hope that project goes well. It's a great thing for the town and not just for the county and tourism potential as well as just, upgrading that library down there.
Any other questions, comments? I just personally want to thank Jim and Paul for your ability to pull all of the partners together. And I truly believe without the two of you being involved to the extent that you are, I'm not so sure it would be just one voice, but I just want to thank you. You two have been very instrumental in getting everybody on board, and you've done a great job.
Thank you. You're welcome.
Yeah, and we certainly thank you, Arl's involvement. I think the county having that perspective of everyone really has to be a main driver here. We're just trying to kind of shift that in. We kind of want to hear that direction from you guys as you move forward.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, the position review team recommendations, Sarah Greaves, Stephanie Stone, Deb Payton. How are you three this morning?
Good. How are you?
Good.
Good morning. I'm Stephanie Stone, Director of Health and Human Services. I'm with Debbie Payton, who's the Deputy Director of Human Resources, and Sarah Greaves, who is our Chief Financial Officer. I'm very glad to bring before you the recommendations of the position review team. Our recommendation is to approve the recommendations of the position review team to as presented or amended and to become effective July 1st, 2018. On April 24th, 2018, staff presented to the board and the board approved a plan by which a systematic review would be conducted of those employee positions where an anomaly or inequity in grade or compensation existed. The approved plan detailed a method by which each division director and department head would have an opportunity to evaluate their department and determine if an inequity was present. Following this evaluation, the directors had an opportunity to submit a formal request for position reviews to Human Resources for consideration and adjustments by the position review team. As a secondary method of review, the team independently conducted its own review of all employee positions to identify the same anomalies and inequities. Staff has dedicated a significant amount of time and resources to produce a product that has been thoroughly vetted without prejudice, favoritism, or influential intervention. Each department was afforded an equal opportunity to present positions for review in addition to the overall review conducted by the team. The team is pleased to report to the board that we have completed our charge and respectfully present our recommendations for consideration and approval. These recommendations are within the scope of our charge and within the confines of the approved budget of $400,000.
As approved by the board, the team notified all divisions, departments, and elected officials within county government of the process by which they could request a position review. In response, the team reviewed 71 requests from 29 departments. These requests were submitted by either the department head or division director for the respective position. The team reviewed all requests and heard justification presentations for all the requests. Additionally, the team conducted its own evaluation of all employee positions, searching for anomalies and inequities that may exist even when a review was not requested by the department head or division director. This search did identify positions meeting these criteria, and those positions were fully reviewed. All requests were scored utilizing an established position review tool. The requests were then ranked based on level of inequity, justification of inequity, and salary review score. Once reviewed, scored, and ranked, the team considered each position for salary adjustment utilizing the $400,000 budgeted approved by the board.
It's important to note that the team was very careful when recommending position adjustments not to create an inequity across departments. Of the 71 requests submitted, the team recommends adjustments to 58 positions, representing 82% of the requests. Of those 58 positions, 44 represent a change related to wages, 10 represent grade and title changes, and 4 include title changes only. All positions being recommended for a grade increase will follow the county practice, which is for every grade up, there will be one step back. These positions affect approximately 132 county employees, representing 16.5% of our employee population. The recommendations we bring before you today have been thoroughly reviewed and evaluated by the position review team and have been determined by established methodology. The fiscal impact will be limited to the board-identified budget of $400,000 for position adjustments. This funding does exist in the FY19 operating budget to address these review findings and approval by the board. The attachment that was passed out in the beginning is organized by department, the title of the position where there may be a recommendation, whether that position is full-time or part-time, how many positions reside in the county under that title, the grade change that is being recommended, and then any notes related to that. You will see in the notes section there are some title changes, some along with grade recommendations, and then some without. And the total cost of the recommended changes is $394,781. Do you have any questions?
Any questions, comments, commissioners?
Maybe one quick question. Under regional airport maintenance worker, a -1 grade change. We're not reducing anyone's pay, are we?
No, sir. That position is vacant right now, and that was a recommendation from the airport director.
Is there a list of the 71 requests?
There certainly is. It's not here, but there certainly is.
I'd like to have seen that, but was there a close 59th? That's what I'm getting at, is why I would want to, maybe there's someone on there that I thought maybe was so close to 59, but I'd like to see the 71. But I do want to thank you for the hard work. I do understand that you put a lot of effort and seriousness, so don't think my question is against you. I just wanted to know if it was a close 59.
We certainly have put a lot of time and effort into this. I would say that of the recommended positions here, we have addressed the largest inequities that were presented, and if the commissioners want to see all the detail and possibly change the recommendation, we may have to postpone.
I'm not suggesting a change. I just wanted to see the list and a review to see if there's something I might have bring a question up later. But
okay, certainly.
How often could reviews be made and recommendations brought back to the board?
Well, we were hoping that this would serve to provide for the largest inequities presented in the county. Certainly, there are a lot of factors to consider. Working for the county, you have very rich benefits here, including our health insurance and our pension plan. So I think that should always be considered among employees when looking at the wages that we receive. And again, this was just to address those largest inequities that were presented.
Judge of the point system.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
That's why I was asking.
Three different criteria, yes, a position review.
The 59th person, 1/10 of 100% off as why.
If I remember correctly, there was no one ranked. There was definitely a substantial gap between the recommendations that we bring before you today and the ones that did not make the recommendation list. And the reason for that also could have been possibly creating an inequity as if we would have recommended a position that did not warrant one.
List and the ranking, I'd appreciate. I know that'll be confidential, but I would like to look at it.
Okay.
I'd like to say that with Sarah, Deb, Steph, and Jim's involvement in this, you had 4 individuals of different mindsets and evaluation process, but they came together to evaluate on a systematic process, which, as stated in the agenda, was without bias. I have not been involved in this other than reporting information to them as a group, as any other director would. And I'm pleased to say I don't think any of the commissioners have been either, which is the intent and purpose. I'd also like to say that keep in mind that the salary review study was supposed to be the single method by which adjustments were made. What this staff found with a very, very close look for equity and anomalies is 71 requests and 58 positions. Is that correct?
Yes.
That from a consultant standpoint could not or were not found. So this 2-layered approach, belt and suspenders approach, I think has been very valuable. And some of these have been long-standing items. The first time this approach has ever been taken. So with this and the policies instituted by HR and adopted by the board, I just think hats off to the staff that's been involved in this. Not to mention the directors that presented their information and department heads.
They did a very good job of coming in with their recommendations and doing some research, which made it easier for us to understand what it is they were.
We met face-to-face with every single one of them.
Okay, thank you all very much.
Can I just add one more little quick? Along with this, if this recommendation is approved to be moved forward, I would ask that the budget adjustment related to this recommendation would also be approved, and that would just be a matter of taking the $400,000 out of the account that it's currently sitting in, which is wage reserve, and distributing it across departments that are across the appropriate departments.
Okay, so with the recommended motion, you want just the budget adjustment to be included?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so we need a motion for approval.
Moved.
Motion a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? 5-0. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
911 Emergency Communications Career Path Proposal. Ms. Greaves.
Thank
Ms.
you.
Payton.
Okay, our recommendation, this is the 911 Emergency Communications Career Path Proposal, which was part of our discussion with the position review team. Our recommendation is to approve the 911 Emergency Communications Career Path Proposal to be implemented July 1st, 2018. Staff is keenly aware of the board's interest in addressing turnover and extended routine overtime at the 911 Emergency Communications Center. Through the budget process, 2 approaches have been considered. First, to add 2 additional call takers over and above the 2 already approved in the FY 2019 budget. Second, to provide a career path for new and long-term employment at 911. For expediency, the position review team already assembled was tasked with considering a career path recommendation from the county administrator, director of emergency services, and the chief operations officer. This career path would serve to enhance the organizational structure of the Emergency Communications Center staff and will provide opportunities for employee advancement by delineating a viable career path through training and support that will expand employee skill sets to best serve our citizens.
The team has thoroughly considered the enhancements to the Emergency Communication Center positions as proposed. The team does endorse the enhancements to the ECC positions as outlined in the attachment. These adjustments create a viable career path for staff through training and grade advancements consistent with the specific disciplines in that department, all while promoting quality service and reliability. In summary, the fiscal year 2019 career path cost is
$111,050.
That's it. The number of the current employees affected with this potential for increase in wages is 52. In the interest of full and fair consideration, the possibility of adding 4 rather than 2 additional call takers was also quantified. This would consider 2 new call takers over and above the 2 new positions already approved in fiscal year 19. In summary, fiscal year 19, 2 additional full-time call takers would cost $118,896. The number of current employees affected by this would be 0 because they haven't been hired yet.
The approved FY19 budget will accommodate either scenario presented before you. The attachment that you have to the ARF shows the structure change for the 911 emergency communication specialist, going from a specialist 1, a specialist 2, a specialist 3, and then an emergency communications supervisor. The total budget impact, again, is $111,000. The structure change would be based on discipline achievement, helping to create that career path. And also attached is the Emergency Communications Center Action Plan that you may have seen before from Dave Hayes. This would also generate a budget adjustment. I can pass that out for the board's review if you like. Okay.
Questions, comments, Commissioner?
I have a question. It's been brought to my attention, we had a resignation last week. Is that accurate? And does that put us 1 down if that's true?
I'm not
Because
familiar
I'd
with
ask that just the
resignation,
turnover part of the plan.
911. Yes, that's
Is that accurate?
That is accurate.
That's correct.
We filled 1 opening, we're hiring 2, now we have another opening. That goes back to my original request, how do we handle employees leaving and coming for other jobs for no reasons at all? So that position will be addressed immediately to be hired, so we're not short.
We already addressed that.
And this is a new one.
Yep. And
I thought we've already addressed, you have the authority to go ahead and advertise.
You're gonna, that's my question. Are we
Yes.
addressing it immediately?
It's okay.
Right. But it does speak to the point that I think is worth underlining in bolding, is that you can throw more bodies at it, but it's the incentive to stay and be responsible
I'm in
and be
agreement with that,
that
absolutely.
we want.
Need to-
Yes, and we want to benefit the employees that are there and actually promote the employees that are there to more responsibility and more
But my
career
concern
path.
was that this person who left had multiple discipline training, so we're gonna replace that with a new person who starts off in 6 months. So just wanted to make sure that was being addressed in this plan of how we replace turnover and immediately.
Absolutely.
Okay, any other questions, comments? Motion to approve?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion is second. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye, opposed? 5-0. Okay, property and casualty insurance renewals.
Thank you,
Tracy?
Commissioners.
You're welcome. We're gonna come back. Tracy McCammon and Patrick Hancock, and how are you two today?
Good. Tracy McCammon, Risk Management Coordinator, Patrick Hancock, Aon Risk Solutions. We're here to present the 2018-2019 property and casualty insurance renewals. Motion is to move to renew the liability policies with Travelers Insurance Company, the property and equipment policies with Local Government Insurance Trust, and the airport liability policy with Global Aerospace. Renewal quotes from insurance carriers are reflected on the attached premium comparison and show a total increase of $49,237 over last year's actuals. That's a 4.3% increase for fiscal year 2019. Due to ongoing successful efforts of Aon, renewal quotes from carriers are within budgeted increases. The physical impact is a 4.3% premium increase to renew the insurance program. However, it is within the 8% budgeted increase. Concurrences is Stephanie Stone, Director of Health and Human Services, and Sarah Greaves, Director of Budget and Finance. The alternative is to lapse of the insurance policies, which would necessitate a bid or a market bid. And of course, you have the attachments of the premium comparisons there. Any questions?
Any questions? If none, motion to approve as recommended.
So, second.
We have motion second. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? 5-0. Thank you very much.
Thank
Have a
you.
good day. Okay, next on the agenda is a public hearing concerning agricultural land preservation district applications. The purpose of the hearing is to hear public testimony concerning the matter. The procedure will be as follows. We will first have staff introduce the matter, after which the hearing will be open for public comment and testimony. Each speaker will be given a maximum of 3 minutes to testify. After everyone who wishes to speak has done so, the hearing will close. The commissioners may then discuss the issue and take any action that they deem appropriate, including adoption or rejection of the proposal, or they may take the issue under advisement and deliberate at a later date. Okay, we'd like to ask Mr. Seifert and Mr. Boggs to go ahead and present the information. How are
Good
you two
morning.
today?
I'm going to give a little background, and then Chris will talk about the specific properties. Going back to 1990, the county commissioners had appointed a blue ribbon panel to jazz up the land preservation program. And one of the items they came up with was to take the then existing 5-year ag districts through the state, modify those to 10-year ag districts, and give a property tax credit. The property tax credit is equal to no county tax paid on the farm land, none paid on the farm buildings, and then the house receives up to $711 tax credit for the ag district. To date, with these properties today, we'll have about 20,000 acres in the ag district. That number also includes ones that are in permanent easement. The ordinance requires that we have a public hearing because tax dollars are involved. This year, the tax credits we wrote up total $414,000. So if these are approved, there will be a document recorded in land records, and they will be bound for 10 years of ag use only. The property cannot be developed during that period. We very rarely see anybody get out of these after the 10-year period. Most of them pursue permanent easements. With that, I'll turn it over to Chris for the criteria and the properties.
Yes. Basically, in order to qualify for the program, the property has to be assessed, an agricultural assessment through Department of Assessments and Taxations. It has to be at least 50 acres in size. The only caveat is that if it's 20 acres or more and is next to other preserved land, then it can get in as well. 50% Class 1, 2, and 3 soils at a minimum. And also, it cannot lie within the bounds of proposed public water and sewer. For instance, it cannot be in the UGA. We have 14 properties this year that have applied and that meet all of those criteria. You got your map attached and the list of applicants. So you can get a pretty good idea of where they're located, as well as an aerial map of each property. Do you have any questions about any of the specific properties?
Any questions, commissioners? Okay, if none, we need to move to approve. You're correct. I'm way ahead of myself. We will now, okay, no questions, commissioners. Okay, we'll now open the hearing for public comment. Anyone wishing to testify here today? Okay, seeing none. Commissioners have any questions?
Mr. Baker, I do. Eric, I guess the big jagged outline around the core of Hagerstown is the urban growth area.
Correct.
Correct.
And I guess looking 50 years out, I know I don't have to worry about it, but a number of these properties are just on the fringe of the urban growth area. Obviously, that in perpetuity, that kind of ends that discussion, so to speak.
Yeah, if these were to go and sell the permanent easements, that's correct. It would be perpetuity. I'm told that legislatively, either the state or county level could terminate a permanent easement. Otherwise, it's in perpetuity. I've never seen it happen yet, but that would be the only possibility. Up until a few years ago, the Maryland Ag Land Preservation Foundation had a clause, a 25-year clause, and just exactly what you talk about. It said if profitable farming is no longer possible and the state and county approve the buyback, it could occur. That clause was eliminated. So for about the last 10 years or so, whatever time period it's been, it is perpetuity. So in that case, it would take a legislative act to dissolve the permanent easement.
Just an observation. I mean, I see all these properties right around the Funkstown, Hagerstown urban growth area. The number 10 is right on the fringe of the Boonesboro growth line. I guess it's ironic none of them are any further south than Keedysville.
We noticed that ourselves. That's getting down to the rural legacy area. We have an awful lot of properties already preserved down there. That could be why, but Chris and I both discussed that none of these are in the rural legacy area down there. I don't know if it's a fluke or that's just the way it worked out. But what you addressed there with the urban growth area, the Ag Board just a few years ago flipped their priority ranking. It used to be if you were close to the urban growth area, they felt like, well, this property's under a lot of pressure, we need to give it priority. The Ag Board addressed exactly what you're saying. So now, if you're close to the urban growth area, you get less points on the priority ranking. So the being further out, you have a higher priority ranking.
And this, what we're voting on today is just for 10 years.
Correct. These are
Yes.
the temporary 10-year districts. It is our hope, though, that a lot of these would pursue the permanent easements.
Or do they have to?
Anytime.
They can
Actually,
apply
they can do it anytime.
anytime.
They can
after
apply.
they get in, yeah.
Yep.
It looks like all of these farms are currently in operation, which is a requirement, it looks like.
It must be ag use assessment, so that means by definition, there's some type of
And does,
agriculture.
does that require it to last for the full 10 years? It has to be in continual use for ag purposes, all 10 years of the,
On rare occasion, we have had people who don't sign the documents that assessment sends them periodically, and it has reverted to residential. But very quickly, when they get that next tax bill, they're into assessments to get it flipped back, because what we do, we don't give them credit in those rare cases for the residential part. We only give credit for the ag part. So it doesn't take them long to get in and fix it.
Normally just an oversight of the landowner. They're still using the property for ag. They just didn't get the form in time or something like that. So they, rush over to get a hold of tax assessment office and get it cleaned up.
Okay, a motion to approve. If no further questions. Close the public hearing. The public hearing is now closed, concluded.
visits in the afternoon. And her new man. That's a pretty nice car. Jenny, stop. Another new man? Well, I don't know. I call him new man. That's a pretty nice car. Some guy from Virginia. Black and white. Big white BMW. Beautiful car. Oh my goodness. I'm like, leave that car here. What's he do? I don't know. I have no idea. They stopped back at the house. Teresa saw him somewhere.
Okay, welcome back. The contract award, PUR 1390, food services at the Washington County Detention Center, Mr. Curry. And Mr. Rao, how are you all today?
Fine. Thank you. Good afternoon,
Mr.
Rick
Rowe,
Curry,
I'm
Director
sorry.
of Purchasing. Recommended motion move to award the contract to responsible proposer, Aramark Correctional Services of Downer Groves, Illinois, for a total proposal amount of $628,639.50 based on the estimated annual quantities for meals at a unit price. And the contractor will provide meals 7 days a week to the inmate population. And the contract is to begin July 1st, 2018. It's a one-year contract with the 4 years additional renewals. Pricing will be based on the producer price index. There's advantages to this contract as listed in the ARF. Encumbrance of inventory, guaranteed meal, budget allowances, cost savings. The RFP was advertised in various medias as listed in the ARF. The coordinating committee met on May 15th and reviewed all the proposals, and then we opened Aramark's. Also provided you with history of cost of meals over the years of the contract, and also the estimated proposed budget for FY19, and you have Aramark's price proposal for their services.
Okay, any questions, commissioners? Comments? If none, we'll need a motion for the recommendation.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? 5-0.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Contract renewal 2016-37, number 2 heating oil, Brandy Noggle. And Mr. Sterling, how are you two today?
Good, how are you?
Good.
The first recommendation I have for you today is for the contract renewal of 2016-37 for number 2 heating fuel. We move to concur with the recommendation of the Washington County Public School System to renew the contract for Washington County's number 2 fuel oil tank wagon deliveries to the responsive bidder of AC&T out of Hagerstown, Maryland. This contract was renewed with the Washington County Public Schools on May 22nd. The county, as well as the city, cooperatively bid the solicitation for heating fuel with the Washington County Public Schools. This renewal is for the period of August 1st of 2018 to July 31st of 2019. This is, excuse me, the last renewal on this contract. Funds are budgeted in the individual departments' accounts.
Any questions, comments? If none, motion to approve.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
Thank you.
Opposed? 5-0. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, bid award, PUR 1392, Brumball Kendall Grove Farmstead demolition, Ms. Noggle and Mr. Ridenour.
I gotta say, that
Afternoon.
He is very happy to be here today for this. Yes, I am. This is for the bid award of
This is his first time.
Today.
PUR 1392 for the Brumball Kendall Grove Farmstead demolition. The recommended motion is to award the project to the responsible bidder of Ritz Construction out of Monrovia, Maryland, for the lump sum bid of $89,864. This invitation was published in a local newspaper, listed on the State of Maryland's eMaryland Marketplace website and the county's webpage. Bids were accepted on May 30th. 20 companies downloaded the document. We received 2 bids, one of which was considered non-responsive. We received it after the deadline. Funding is available in the amount of $90,000 in this department's CIP budget.
Any questions, comments?
Motion to approve.
Motion to approve. Need a second.
After 12 years, a healthy second.
Yeah, 20 years probably.
Yeah.
Motion is second. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? 5-0.
Thank you very much.
Thank you and good luck.
Long time.
Rescind bid award PR 1380 janitorial services for Washington County office buildings. Ms. Noggle and Mr. Panisi.
The last recommendation I have for you today is for the rescind of bid 1380 for janitorial services. The recommended motion is to relieve P2 Cleaning Services out of Laurel, Maryland from their bid without prejudice and award to the next lowest responsive responsible bidder, which is Beck and Call out of Laurel, Maryland, for the amount of $249,206.15. P2 Cleaning is requesting to be relieved of its bid due to a mistake in their calculation of hours for the admin building. Funding is available in various departments' accounts for these services.
Okay, any questions,
Yeah,
comments?
just a question for legal to explain the process when we rescind law. We don't put it out, but we do the second lowest.
I think this is normally what we do in our purchasing if we attempt to reward to their lowest responses or their lowest bidder, and then there's an issue with their bid, that we go to the next lowest bidder. So, but this one's already been awarded, so that's why they're here today to ask you to rescind that award and then go ahead and award to the second lowest bidder.
Okay, thank you.
And Jeff, this is part of our purchasing policy.
Yes, I just wanted to clear for the record for people who didn't understand. That's the only reason. Thank you.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Second lowest bidder.
Okay, have a motion and a second. Any further?
Do we have to rescind that first and then bid on?
Yes.
We can.
I thought you were approved.
So I'm making a motion to accept the rescind of the bid.
Rescind and then accept the new recommendation.
We do both.
You rescind, you can
You
do it
want
on
the same
one if
motion
you
or
want, but
not?
you rescind. You can do it on one, but we rescind first. So, actually, why don't you go ahead and make a motion to rescind the earlier one, and then we'll make a second motion to go ahead.
Motion to rescind the lowest bidder.
Okay, motion second for, to rescind. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, 5-0. Now we need a motion, for the recommended motion, for the,
Motion to approve.
okay. Have a motion, need a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? 5-0.
Thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you very much. Okay, sex offender compliance enforcement Maryland grant approval to submit application, Ms. Wilson. And Mr. Miller, how are you two today?
Good afternoon. I'm Tina Wilson with the Office of Grant Management, and I have Cody Miller with the Washington County Sheriff's Office here with me today. I'm requesting to approve the submission of the grant application for the fiscal year 19 Sex Offender Compliance and Enforcement Maryland Grant to the Governor's Office of Crime Control and Prevention in the amount of $36,259 and accept funding as awarded. The Washington County Sheriff's Office plans to utilize the funding provided by the Sex Offender Compliance and Enforcement Maryland Grant to fund the salaries of 2 part-time civilian employees who assist the sex offender registrar with register and re-register of sex offenders while also conducting compliance checks of employment as well as home addresses. The grant will also cover training expenses to include registration fees, meals, lodging, and travel. The Office of Grant Management has reviewed the grant funding guidelines associated with this program. The performance period of the state-funded grant is for 1 year starting July 1, 2018. Matching fund or in-kind support is not required for this program. The anticipated grant award is $36,259, which includes wages, benefits, and operational expenses. This grant is annually recurring, and there are no unusual conditions or requirements attached to the acceptance of the grant. If awarded, the grant reduces costs associated with the sex offender registration program by $36,259. Do you have any questions?
If no questions, need a motion to approve the recommendation?
Second.
Motion second. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? 5-0. Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a good day. State Homeland Security Grant Program Modification. Mr. Brown. Good afternoon. How are you?
I'd like to move to approve the modification of funds being moved from one expense account to another expense account within the fiscal year 16 State Homeland Security Grant Program. On October 11th, 2016, approval was obtained to accept the total award amount of $183,341 for the fiscal year 16 State Homeland Security Grant Program. This grant is intended to enhance and maintain current Homeland Security initiatives as they pertain to prevention, preparedness, response, recovery, and mitigation. Projects submitted in the grant application did not move forward as originally anticipated. Due to the canceled projects, a budget modification was submitted to the Maryland Emergency Management Agency with a request to move the remaining grant funds from the software and communication line items to allow for the equipment purchase of ballistic helmets and body armor for EMS personnel who are responding to active assailant incidents. The Maryland Emergency Management Agency has approved a modification request. However, in order for the Office of Budget and Finance to move forward with the budget transfer, approval must be received from this body. Total cost of the project is $28,404.
Okay, any questions, commissioners? If none, I'll move to our motion to move forward with the recommendation.
So moved.
Second.
Second, any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? 5-0. Thank you. A hotel rental tax funding request, Maryland Symphony Orchestra, Miss Buchanan and Miss Sox. How are you two today?
As announced, I'm Susan Buchanan, Director, Office of Grant Management, and along with me today is Emily Sox, who is the Director of Advancement for the Maryland Symphony Orchestra. We're here this afternoon to request a motion to approve the request for hotel rental tax funding, an amount to be determined today, that was submitted by the Maryland Symphony Orchestra for direct expenses associated with the 33rd Annual Salute to Independence at Antietam National Battlefield to be held July 7th, 2018. The Maryland Symphony Orchestra has submitted a request for hotel rental tax funding to support the 33rd Annual Salute to Independence, which will be held at the battlefield as stated. This year's event on July 7th, 2018, funding is being requested for to support it in the amount of $35,000. The Salute to Independence at Antietam National Battlefield is a marquee event for Washington County with approximately 35,000 visitors attending annually. Americans for the Arts publication estimates the annual economic impact for this event at $1.1 million. The Washington County Convention and Visitor Bureau reports that the hotel occupancy rates for this weekend are consistently at 90% as compared to 75% for other July weekends. Many hotels in Washington County report being fully booked that weekend. The total event budget for 2018 is set at $252,978. The Maryland Symphony Orchestra has secured funding from other sources for this event totaling $124,138. They will also receive in-kind contributions totaling $93,840 from many community partners and the Antietam National Battlefield. The Board of County Commissioners has provided financial support to this event historically. In 2017, the Commissioners contributed $35,000 towards the direct expenses of the event. This event meets all 7 of the Board of County Commissioners' goals and criteria for the use of hotel rental tax funds. The Maryland Symphony Orchestra has proven to be a very responsive and responsible grantee to the Office of Grant Management. There are no issues of outstanding obligations to the county that would prevent them from receiving funding. The MSO's 2017 Hotel Rental Tax Grant Report shows that last year 30,000 people attended the event and 800 estimated hotel rental nights purchased. It is the recommendation of the Washington County Office of Grant Management that the application be approved in an amount determined to be appropriate by this board.
Yeah, any questions, comments?
Just a comment, President Baker, just the cooperation, the camaraderie, and all that takes place at this fantastic event. It's become significant over the last 31 years or 32 years.
The 33rd.
33rd, excuse me. And the cooperation with the Park Service and the folks there at the Antietam Battlefield, and as was stated, the gifts in kind of many businesses in this community that support this thing. I'd be honored to make the motion that once again we support it with the $35,000 out of hotel motel.
Okay, we have a motion, a second for the support of the $35,000. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? 5-0. Thank you. Good.
Thank you all. Thank you.
Yep. Okay, the approval of approval of bylaws for the Diversity and Inclusion Committee. Ms. Lum, our clerk.
Thank you. Good afternoon. As the commissioners are aware, for months we have talked about a Diversity and Inclusion Committee. Mr. Baker and Mr. Kiefer met with Ms. Matma and Mr. Hicks, who are in the audience today, to discuss their goals for such a committee. So we have devised some bylaws. We've also requested a $2,000 budget line item in the budget for FY 2019 to carry out the mission of the group. The mission of the group is to, excuse me, advise the county commissioners on public policy relating to ethnic affairs, promote the involvement of all ethnic groups in business and community affairs, and advocate services and programs relating to the quality of life for all residents. Membership will be comprised of 7 individual voting members and 2 non-voting ex officio members. We hope it will be 1 county commissioner member and 1 Board of Education member. And once the bylaws are approved, we will have a media release through our PR department to encourage members to apply, and we will vote on them in open session in the next coming weeks to get the committee started. Again, I'd like to thank Ms. Matma and Mr. Hicks especially for getting this off the ground and coming to meetings and helping to achieve this committee. The only thing I want to know, excuse me? Oh, definitely. One thing I wanted to mention, John Martirano and I were talking about how we were going to appoint 1/3 of 7 members in the bylaws. We finally decided we'd put the word approximately in there so we don't have to cut up a member. So the only change I made in the bylaws that you see today are on page 2 under B, I put approximately 1/3 of the members. This is, of course, when you start a new board, you want to stagger the terms so everyone doesn't expire at the same time. So that's the only change we made in the minutes. They have been approved by Mr. Martirano and County Administrator. So unless we have comments, I will introduce our guests if they'd like to comment first. Zuni Matma and Arthur Hicks. Feel free to come on to the microphone.
I personally want to thank both of you for taking the time out of your busy life to have an interest in this committee, and I know a couple of the meetings that I attended during the discussions, very good dialogue, and I just think you all have helped put together a very important committee for our community, so I just want to reach out and say thank you.
If I could just add to that before you speak, if that's okay. I appreciate the time as well. Several months ago, Ms. Ms. Miller approached me at around the same time Mr. Hicks had a conversation with Commissioner Baker about this idea, and we've had some great conversations along the way. Neither one of you are strangers to helping out in county government and the communities. I know Ms. Miller is a member of our Historical Advisory Committee, and Mr. Hicks helps with a youth group with some young men in the community. So maybe if you could both talk about that too, but appreciate your effort with this, and we'll yield to you.
I just want to say thank you so much, President Baker, and all others who have listened to what we've said through words. Vicki Lum has been, very helpful in terms of explaining and providing a space for us and time to talk. And I have, for most of my life, don't want to ignore you, Councilman Kiefer, but I've spent most of my life working with a diversified group of people in theater, transitional courses of life. It has been a pleasure to see communities grow under the umbrella of extended diversity, especially that which is supported by a local council or government. When I came to Washington County 5 years ago, I saw the opportunity for people who needed to have a voice at the table. And I was a little hesitant. I spoke with Councilman Kiefer and I said, I have this plan, this idea, and I waited for a year. I thought it through for quite a long time before I actually approached him again with the subject, and then finally I did. I decided to devise a plan. And we've been lucky to have people come aboard who are not only brilliant and articulate, but also have the same, heart to do these things. So I think we will work together. I think it'll be a beautiful accomplishment, and I'm sure all of us are very happy just for the opportunity. Sorry I come in limping so, but I've just had full knee replacement. Anyone joined me with that? Because it's quite something. So it teaches you also about being cared for, and also a diversity of medical procedures, things that can happen to people along the way. So thank you very much.
I just want to start with the comment of brilliant and articulate. Is that in the record? Is that going to be?
That's you. You brilliant and articulate.
Okay, let's point that. Let's capture that. I think it's a good start. You got to start somewhere, and it's going to improve from there. So thanks for your interest in moving forward. Thank you for your work. I think we're in good hands, and we got a good start. So,
Two hips, one knee. For me, I felt your pain. Best wishes to you when you're healing.
Thank you. It's been 3.5 weeks. I'm surprised.
Good.
I was determined to get here today.
Thank you both very much.
All right.
You'll see the PR release soon.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so with that, any commissioner comments, questions? Any more to add from Ms. Lum? Anything else to add? Okay, with that, we are looking for a motion to move forward to approve bylaws of the Diversity Inclusion Committee as presented.
So moved.
Second. Motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? 5-0.
Terry, can we do a picture?
Oh, that's what we want.
Why don't the commissioners, why don't we come on up and do a picture together up front here? I think this is not only important, but historic.
That's good. Mhm. I got it. Close enough. Okay. Okay, JG Business Link International request for funding. Wanro Lee, Joe Lee, and Gun Lee. How are you three today again?
Good, how are you?
Good.
Thank you.
Right there. Thank you. Okay, welcome again. How was lunch and how's your
Very
day
good.
going?
How about yourselves?
Good, good.
Appreciate the time to meet with the commissioners and for us to present the trip that we are planning for this late June, early July. The mission for the trip is for JG Business International to reciprocate a lot of the relationships that we've established, and particularly during the recent March trip, and from the visitors from ESOC Holdings and the Chang'an Clover Corporation. So I just wanted to go over some of the meetings that we would potentially have during the trip, discuss what the potential outcomes could be, and also with the supplemental information, just show what some of the work that we have done to make this mission not only important, but also further develop the Cascade Town Center. So recently, the Chang'an Clover Corporation had visited the Cascade Town Center site. They established their business here in Maryland, actually registered it, and opened up their business accounts. They did meet with county officials to look at potential sites for seeding some of their crop, and also looked at the commissary building for their development. On top of that, they've, as discussions were going along, they also requested, at least requested information if there was an additional 800 acres for agricultural development within the county for some of the other crops that they want to be able to grow in the county. So the reason why we want to meet with them is obviously we do understand that the lease agreement is under review, and also prior to us going, we wanted to see if we could have that lease agreement executed so that we could get them to sign off on it when we visit with them. We still have discussions of when their next visit is going to be, identifying the site between the Agricultural Research Center and the airport for their initial seeding. And there's a number of things that we have to discuss with them to move the project further along. The next meeting that we want to have is with the Korea Special Agronomics Corporation. This is the one that we signed the recent $32.5 million deal. They are going to be developing a smart farm facility at the Cascade Town Center, and their plans to visit in July so that they could identify the site and also be able to discuss with us what those plans will be. So when we meet with them, it's really just discuss and plan some of the things that are important to them. One of the things that we have planned upcoming is actually meeting with the Department of Commerce for the state of Maryland, because there's a target employment area that the Cascade Town Center and Fort Ritchie actually is eligible for, and for some reason that eligibility had lapsed, so we have to discuss that with the state to reinstate it. The next meeting we have is with ESOC Holdings. They had visited here, to not only understand the site, but also get a feel and taste of, just Cascade in general. They have numerous development projects. In the 2016 trip, I believe, Commissioners Kiefer, Barr, and Myers actually met with ESOC Holdings. So it's not a development or entity that's unfamiliar to the county. They do have significant pockets. They've done over 600 projects, and they are very interested in assisting us in developing the Cascade Town Center. The next discussion is the, and before I go to the next part, with ESOC Holdings, they did see the concept site plan, which is the first image that you have in your packet. It's this drawing right here. In the 63-acre design plan that we presented to them, it not only has a retail center, a hotel, several condominium units, townhomes, but also houses the medical office building and rehabilitation center that we're discussing with our healthcare partners to develop on the site. So they're going to be assisting us in this development as well. On the second image that you have, in particular the resort area, so it's this image right here. Adjacent to the 63 acres, we have the resort design plan development that we've been discussing with the Military Mutual Aid Association. So ESOC Holdings is actually assisting us in this part of the development as well. That being said, the ESOC Holdings is also going to be holding a number of investor meetings that during the trip they'll be setting up for us. The next thing I want to touch upon is the Global Infrastructure and Cooperation Conference. We'll be meeting with the officials. It'll be held at the COEX Convention Center for September 17th to the 20th. We're going to be meeting with the officials there to be able to discuss not only the GICC, but the fact that it's hosted by the South Korean Ministry of Land, Transportation, and Infrastructure. It is a federal government entity for South Korea, Department of Transportation equivalent. They have a $1 billion pool right now that several countries around the world are competing for, and we would be possibly the only one from the United States that would be attending this conference. The minister himself actually extended an invitation to both the county administrator and the director of business development, and those letters are actually in your packet. It's these two letters right here. So now it's very difficult to attain a letter from a Korean minister, especially for something as prestigious as this. But they are also stated that for their invitation, they would be accommodating airfare and hotel for the duration of that travel for the two individuals. The next thing I want to touch upon is the Real Estate Expo Korea. The Real Estate Expo Korea is the largest real estate expo in the country. It's going to be from September 19th to the 21st. It's attended by over 15,000 investors, developers, and construction companies. We attended last year and had significant promotion and exposure. It's actually where we met the Korea Special Agronomics Corporation. And obviously from that, we were able to stem a $32.5 million deal. The next meeting we'll have will be the Military Mutual Aid Association, which is also known as M+. It's actually the South Korean Military Pension Fund. With their discussions with them, their interests are obviously the resort, the brand hotel, and the retail center at the Cascade Town Center, and they've also received the concept drawings that ESOC Holdings had. And their initial commitment is for a $100 million investment to develop not only the resort, but it could have amusement park or a water park or a number of different things that would be tailored toward attracting not only Korean but U.S. veterans as well, because they understand the mutual partnership between the two countries. The next meeting that we have would be with Kyung University. Kyung University is interested in establishing their athletics, bioengineering, Asian medicine, and public policy departments at the Cascade Sound Center. During this past March trip, they actually met with Summit Health, and they were interested in cooperating with them in developing their Asian medicine and also their Western medicine departments at the Cascade Town Center. The next meeting we have will be with Yo-Yo Korea. That's we've already have an MOU with them, but they'll be visiting this July to establish a winery on the site. And then there's Dream Tech, which is a South Korean food assembly manufacturing corporation. They do at least $20 million in sales a year, and they're interested in establishing their U.S. facilities at the Cascade Town Center. And then we have a meeting with the Gyeonggi Credit Guarantee Foundation. This entity is a major local Korean government entity that would be supporting a lot of the academic development that would be going on at the Cascade Town Center. So schools like Kyung University or any university that's within their province, they'd be willing to support as a satellite campus. And then last, we would be meeting with Wongang University. And Wongang University actually has an MOU with Washington County and the University of Maryland to develop their Asian Medicine Institute, and discussions with Summit Health are also underway so that they would be able to partner together. And so through that, we are anticipating 14 days of travel. 3 members from our staff would be going. And then we would also be having investment seminars, which is why we're requesting the budget for $47,050. Are there any questions?
Are you through with your presentation?
Yes.
Okay. Any questions, commissioners? I did have a question on your mission meetings.
Yes.
Sheet.
Mm-hmm.
I should know how to pronounce this. I hope I can pronounce it correctly. Jang
Jang-hoon.
Jang-hoon, that's it. Okay. The Clover Corporation.
Yes.
Talks about 800 acres there that they're going to need additional 800 acres.
Yes.
So they've already secured some
No.
land?
No. So the meetings that they had last week, it was the initial discussions. So we have spoken with Leslie Hart about that, and she's following up with us on potential sites that would be going.
Okay, and then it talks about that land has to be organic.
They want it to be organic, so it may not initially be organic, but some of the discussions stated that as long as it has some of the initial processes done, they can work toward it as the crops grow.
Okay, so they can still use the crops.
And then eventually get organic certification,
okay,
which I believe is about a 3-year process, and a lot of the crops some of them take that much time to be able to fully develop.
So that fits into the raisin trees also?
Yes.
Okay. And then are they looking to lease or purchase 800 acres? Or
At this point, they just requested to see if there was land available. I think once we identify the sites, that would be the next step to take.
And Leslie Hart has that information?
Yes.
Okay, any other questions, commissioners?
Yeah, but just a little more detail about the MOU we just signed in March with the Korea Special Agronomics.
Yes.
It's an MOU.
Yes.
I guess one of the questions of my constituents and everybody that's concerned, when will the MOUs turn into contracts and groundbreaking? And is this trip this month part of that process to make a contract with any of these MOUs?
Yes, absolutely. We signed the MOU, just for example, if we go back to the Changwon Corporation, we signed the MOU last year, and that's actually starting to develop into an actual contract, this year, which is what we want to try to execute prior to the trip. The Agronomics Corporation, since they still have yet to identify specifically where the site is, once we have that detail, we'd be putting the proposal so that they could have the contract agreement. Yes.
Roughly about how many MOUs have you been able to gather so far in the, I guess, since the project started?
For the county side, we were looking at, the county had signed off on roughly about 14 agreements. JGBLI alone has about 30 since the development had started. So that's a total of about 45 agreements that have been signed off since 2015 when this development first started. Just for clarification, the agreement that was signed in March was actually a memorandum of agreement, so an MOA, and that was to basically lay down the template of what they were looking for and then proceed with the next steps of what they will be doing. So when we go back to Korea in June, we'd be following up with meetings to discuss with them on what they would be planning to do, followed by a visit from the Korean group to the U.S. so they can actually look at the site and actually proceed on their questions about what they want to do, and then we'll proceed from there and look at groundbreaking as soon as we would be able to.
In honesty, once the come to terms and be able to execute the leasing agreement for even Changheng, that would essentially constitute groundbreaking, because there would be details of them with not only their investment but also being able to do the build-out designs, permits, and all those things.
Okay, any other questions, comments? So what we signed in March was a memorandum of agreement, not a memorandum of understanding.
Yes, so it's basically the next step.
Yeah, it has far more detail in it than a simple MOU. Yeah.
John, is there a legal distinction between the two?
There's not much to it, but I think it sounds like the process they're doing is basically just they will continue to move forward with this MOA. Seems like they're doing more detail.
Yes.
That MOA, that was between JGBLI
and the special
right, the
agronomic
county
groups.
wasn't. The county's not a signatory to that.
No, they were not.
But there's not. Did we? I don't know.
I guess my only point is we're moving forward. We're making progress.
That is correct.
To the final signing of a contract and groundbreaking
Yes.
on many of these agreements is what my question was.
Yes.
Do we have any kind of indication when we're going to get from MOAs and MOUs to actual contracts and construction, or some type of shovel in the ground?
As far as the Chang group, that's should be well underway. I think before the end of the year that we'll see a lot of that movement. As far as the Korea Special Agronomics Corporation, once we identify, identify a site, the timelines are a little different for each group. The reason why we think that the Special Agronomics Corporation could also go a lot quicker is the sheer fact that they've already identified some of their construction partners and architects. And so they may have a lot of these plans already in place and just need to be able to submit them.
Okay, any other questions, comments?
The 60-plus acres that were transferred about a year ago, I forget what month last year, but it was about a year ago. Can you talk a little bit about the progress that's been made with that? I think when that was taking place, that was a big hope to get the whole project kind of kick-started.
Yes. So we've already, so the reason why we've submitted the concept design plans, we've already identified 3 of the sites. One is a residential site, one is a medical office building site, and one is a brand hotel. Now, we're well underway on the brand hotel discussions. The only thing that we've been running into is the fact that there's still some UXO in some of those areas, but once that's cleared, and particularly where the medical office building is, there's some remediation that's done under one of the buildings. We have been in discussions with the Army about how to be able to, fix that, those portions. The UXO piece we think can be done relatively quickly. The part under the motor pool may take a little more time, but there are things being done to be able to move those forward.
And you talk about a contract that you want agreed to before the trip.
Yes.
Can you talk a little bit about that?
So it's the Chang'an Clover Corporation would be agreeing to a lease of the commissary building, and the lease is contingent on a $2 million investment to improve and also upgrade a lot of the facility so it comes up to current code. There's also an employment trigger on it, and what they've requested is that
Bye.
Yeah. And once they fulfill those triggers,
A calendar alert.
they requested that the building be turned over to them. And also in regards to the brand hotel that we have on the 63, once we come back, we'll be setting hard dates for the groundbreaking for that as well.
And I did call 911.
Okay, back to the 800 acres of agricultural property.
Yes.
So the Clover Corporation, what's the time frame for them to start planning and all of that? So, I mean,
Planning or planting?
planting.
Planting. So they need to do the initial seedings in the next few weeks. And so, but that is only about an acre to 3 acres. So that
will happen up there.
Yes, that will happen either at the airport or the University of Maryland Research Facility location. So once they identify on one of the two. That being said, we obviously still need the lease agreement so they'd be able to utilize the land. That seeding process takes 2 to 3 months, and then they'll be transplanting that into the final location where they'll actually be grown, which is why they're looking for the 800 acres. So we have about a 2 to 3 month window to identify the final location where they'll be planted.
Of the 3 acres or 800 acres?
800 acres.
So when will all of that planning occur?
This is what we've been discussing and trying to get underway so that they can finalize those plans so they can get here. Some of the things that they're also working through is the fact that they're bringing seeds over, so they have to discuss that with the USDA to make sure that they're following the proper procedures.
So they bring their own seeds, and then is there a certain time of year that you have to plant those seeds?
It was supposed to be May, but since we had such a cold spring, that a lot of it got delayed. So we think the timing is still okay for them to be able to do that now.
By when?
Before the end of June.
800 acres of that planted before the end?
Oh, no, I'm sorry. 800 acres for the initial seeding. So that's the 1 to 3 acres. And then during that 2 to 3 month period for them to grow.
When do they plan on planting on the 800 acres?
After that 2 to 3 month period. And they would be transplanting it to the final location where they'd be grown.
They wouldn't do it until the start of next summer.
They would be looking to transplant their products over in like October.
Yeah.
So sometime in mid-fall. So
300 acres to
yeah.
the 800 acres.
Yes.
Yes.
So by planting on the 3 acre parcel, you'll be able to plant enough crop
Yes.
to transplant to 800 acres.
Yes.
Yes. And then that after they transplant it, the trees has a maturation period of about 3 years. So they'll be leasing out the land of 800 acres or so for the 3 years that they can grow the trees.
And our climate is conducive to
Yes.
the raisin tree.
Yes.
I'm sure they've already figured all that out. I'm just asking for more information. So who will be responsible for the transplanting of the raisin tree?
So once we finalize the location and the lease agreements and those things, the folks from the Chocolate Clover Corporation are actually going to come back, do the planting, be here for the 2 months to continue 2 to 3 months to have them grow and mature, and then they would do the transplantation as well.
So they would have access to the 800 acres that they purchased or leased?
Yes.
Okay, any other questions, comments? Okay, if not,
I do have one. As far as the airport location, I'm not familiar with that location. Is that something you're familiar with, Jim?
It's around the farm, the old farm on
Grove?
that we just discussed.
Grove Farm?
Yeah, I thought I had shown you a location.
I just have a comment about your lease. Pretty good deal getting something for zero. And yes, you know, you're going to put $2 million into it, but as a matter of fact, you should put $2 million into it. And but I cannot even start to agree with landlord will furnish at landlord's expense all the items there. If you're going to get it for nothing, then that should say tenant or someone else, not the county. The county cannot, you know, push your snow away and take care of your property on the outside, or repair electricity or make sure it's hot and cold water. That, you know, for us giving you the building. You understand?
Okay. I mean,
and then the other thing is when it comes to the $2 million. Can you explain? You say $2 million investment. Is that in new roof, new walls, new
Yes.
interior? So that is $2 million of expense on the tenant's part that we put into the building.
Yes.
That in the event that you have to walk away, if it doesn't pan out, is left behind.
So the HVAC, the electrical, everything inside and out. Yes.
Okay. That does not. The $2 million can be made clear that it's not equipment or removable, whatever.
No.
Okay.
But we're not, right now, our recommendation is just to.
The trip. I understand. I was just wondering why they were here.
Well, I think the trip is
Part of this.
part of the lease agreement, I think, right?
Yes.
I mean, you're wanting an approval for the lease. I have a few issues with the lease. I think I had concerns with the 63 acres and that being given for no consideration. I haven't seen the progress on that I had hoped to see. I'm looking here at all the trips that have been taken, many of which predate my tenure on the board. And, you know, I'm hopeful that something takes place. But for the lease, no monetary consideration for 5 years, that just on top of what we've already given that hasn't seen much activity, I have a little bit of concern about the lease. So I wonder if the lease isn't favorable to the board, is the trip necessary or required, if that's the purpose of the trip?
Well, like I said, today it just says the motion is just for the $47,000 for the trip. And then I think in the information that they provide us, shows us all the missions are going to be on while they're over there. And do you have to have the approval of the lease before you take the trip?
We would like to. I mean, that's and I understand Commissioner Kiefer's concerns about that, which is why we put in the monetary trigger for the investment and an actual specific dollar amount. As Commissioner Myers had pointed out, the $2 million is actually being invested into the building. So after 5 years, let's say it doesn't work out, then you still have, you know, $2 million of at least $2 million worth of improvements on a facility that can be, you know, utilized, you know, for a lease or purchase or anything else that's already been improved.
Based on the lease, if they put $2 million of investment, they receive the building. So Once they make
and
that $2 million investment, they receive the building, it doesn't pan out,
and also with 50 employees.
they get to sell it.
Would the offer be possible if, let's say, the building were sold for a very reasonable price? I'm just throwing out a number for simple math here. I don't know if this is a value at all. $500,000, and instead of being required to do $2 million of fixed improvements, you do $1.5 million as your requirement. So the investment on your end is still $2 million hard cash that you're spending, but there's a purchase that's made.
Okay. No, I understand what you're saying.
That's going to happen. That's going to be the discussion this week, possibly on the lease. I don't know.
They brought the lease up, so I think.
No, I mean.
그 이유가 200만 불이 한국 그 군총에서 나오는 돈이기 때문에 퍼처싱을 안 하고 15개 회사면 15개 회사를 살려주기 위해서 시설을 투자해 주는 거야. 그게 한국 가버먼트에서 오는 돈이라고.
And so one additional piece of information is that that $2 million investment, it's not only coming from the Chang'an Clover Corporation, but the Chang'an County is subsidizing a significant part of that. And so what they actually want to see is also economic development. And in order for that to be in place, the reason why they're doing a lease as opposed to a purchase is to ensure that, during that period, that investment's actually, being done, that they're also meeting those, employment requirements as well. So it's a safeguard, if anything else.
Part of the lease could be 500, 600,000, what have you, could be a payment to the county.
For a purchase, right?
For a lease. They want a lease, and they want to, because they're going to own it in 5 years anyhow, once they make their $2 million investment. So, and I don't know, so part of the lease could be that we receive X number of dollars, and then they do the $1.5 million renovation. But that
I think what I'm hearing, if I'm correct, is that there's an interest in some investment or some contractual effect made to go beyond the agreement and some investment in the properties. So whether it's 500,000 or some value that's, as we have all properties appraised before transaction.
그 이유가 그 뭐냐면은 그 예를 들어서 20개 회사를 1억씩을 배당을 시키는 거야. 그래서 이걸 갖다가 리스로 묶어놓고 이 회사들이 살아나면 그 계속 밀어주는 거고 또 못 살아나면 결국은 다 데리고 가야 돼. 그런 시스템이라 그렇다고 그래.
And so one of the things that to consider is the fact that since the Chang'an County government is also subsidizing a large portion of the deal, if you were to say, there were 20 companies and they were each given $100,000 a piece, for this part of the project, if they continue to grow, which, if there's, 20 companies, $100,000, $2 million, if they continue to grow, they can still continue to get government support from Chang'an County for their economic development. But if they fail, then the support goes and they would have to pull out. That being said, if the $2 million is toward the actual improvement of the building, there's still an asset for the county afterwards.
그래서 이퀴먼트 같은 거나 이런 거는 그 물건에 대한 그 모든 그 돈은 개인 회사가 그다음에 투자를 또 시작한다.
Yeah, and also for the equipment, because the Chang'an government is subsidizing their space, the companies themselves will be doing their capital investment for their own equipment. So those are kind of the stipulations. It's also the reason why we want to be able to present it, because not only are we getting it so that the Chang'an Clover Corporation would be signing off on it, but obviously the Chang'an County government to also be able to review it as well.
그래 미국에서 그런 시스템으로 해서 성공한 게 포트라라고 그래가지고 페더럴 정부에서 그런 시스템을 하고 이제 지방 정부가 그걸 따라서 하는 거라고 그렇게 얘기해요.
Yeah, and so similar deals like this are done by an agency called COTRO, which is actual Korean central government agency. They've done multiple deals like this before, and so we've modeled it after some of the things that they've done.
Okay, let's get back to the motion here. It says move to approve funding to be provided for the June 18th or June 2018 Korean Business Development Mission, not to exceed $47,050. So I guess that's what we're looking for a motion for, unless there's an adjustment to the motion. No further questions or anything. I'd like to ask for a motion to approve the recommended motion.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second for the recommended motion. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
Okay, 2-2. I'm the tiebreaker, and I'm going to support, so it'll be a 3-2 vote.
Thank you.
Thank you.